with Allstate, the Brian Green Agency. Once again, I appreciate you sitting down with me and doing this. And why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about your background? Where you come from. Where you got your start into. It doesn't even have to be the insurance business, into any business. What your education, whatever you want to talk about. So
right
you start where you want to start, and we'll go from there.
Cool. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to do this. I tell you what, from a young age, from the time I was 10 or 12, I was mowing in my neighborhood. I was knocking doors and pushing my lawnmower and trimmer and blower up and down the street, mowing yards. And so like a lot of kids, maybe less today, but still, kind of that's how I got my start. And we used to do a local pancake feed when I was a kid, and it was like 10 or 12 schools, and a grocery store would do this, and I was always the top 2 or 3 in that for all these schools. I love to talk to people. I've never been afraid to introduce myself. I've never known a stranger, and so as I've grown, I started in Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay.
I don't know that I said that.
No, I didn't know is that where you're from?
Yeah.
So I didn't know you were from Nebraska.
Yeah.
Are you a KU fan, K-State fan, or are you staying true to the Nebraska side of things?
So I'm kind of a mix.
Mix?
I got down here to go to KU.
Okay.
I knew I wanted to get out of state and see, something a little different.
Sure.
And so I really didn't have a loyalty. At the time, I was a Creighton Blue Jay basketball fan. And a Nebraska football fan like everybody in Nebraska.
Oh, yeah.
So coming down here, I was not coming to be a Jayhawk for sports. Didn't know anything about KU or K-State really from a sports perspective at all. So it was a chance for me to get away. I loved the campus and loved the people that I met when I came down here. So I ended up at KU and went into business, but tied that with an English degree as well.
Okay. So why English?
I'm just a communicator. I'm a reader. I love to write.
Sure.
I actually, almost took a career path into technical writing.
Really?
I interviewed with a friend who had just started a technical writing business out of KU.
What is technical writing? If I'm not familiar with that term.
About as different as what I do now as you could. Okay. This is all. What I do now is communicate verbally.
Sure.
Technical writing at the time, he was working on writing the manual for the underground train system in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
How to repair those trains, how to work with those trains.
That's a lot of detail.
So I would have been writing all the time,
no doubt,
and talking to nobody. So
it's a completely different lifestyle. Holy cow!
It couldn't be two more diametrically opposed
no doubt.
Careers. And so I still love to write, both fiction and nonfiction.
Do you have any books published?
I do not have any published books. Yeah,
but do you have some that just aren't out, or?
No, I really, getting into life where I've got 6 kids, and that takes so much of my time that I really have not set. And
Sure.
Starting businesses as I have become kind of I love helping people start businesses now, and so that takes a lot of my time. And so while I get a lot of writing with customers, interacting that way,
sure.
And through other business ventures and writing to bankers, etc., I have not sat down to write or put down any concepts. Although I've thought about getting back into that, and I probably will at some point.
Well, if you have a passion for writing, it'll happen at some point. So it's when you find that time.
Yeah.
I understand that completely. I am by no means anywhere near as educated as you are around writing and English and all of that. But it's always been something that's kind of been in the back of my mind of, what would it take to write a book or two? And, of course, you start thinking about, well, is it going to be interesting? Do I even have something to write about? There's a lot to put into that. And, life happens, kids, all that stuff. But I did not know about the others, so that's very awesome. So anyway, you went to Lawrence. You're in Lawrence now. Once you moved to Lawrence, what kept you here versus being back in Nebraska?
So it's funny. Kim says she doesn't remember this, but I remember it clearly. Kim's my wife, but I got straight out of school. I was hired by Harding Glass Company, who was big through this part of the country. And when they hired me, I completed a project with them my senior year in college, and so they offered me a job. And there was about 10 of us that were offered, and they really had a grasp of whether they wanted to move most of the people into either a management role or a sales role. And he really wasn't sure what he was going to do with me, and he ended up putting me here in Topeka as their sales.
Okay.
And so I took a store that was doing almost no auto glass sales, and within a year we had moved into the top 10 in the company out of about 85 stores. And
wow.
By our second year here, won the award for top salesman in the company. And third year, they, as they love to do in sales, kept bumping my goals, and I kept crushing them. And so really was successful, and I thought, okay, good here. I received a call from a guy up in Omaha that actually I had mowed for and did a bunch of other work for, and he said, hey, I'd love to hire you to come in and help me grow my business. And I came real close to moving back to Omaha, but I had just started dating Kim, and we were getting serious. And she said, I moved with my dad all through the country. I'm not moving anymore. And so I turned it down, and my history in Kansas was cemented.
Okay. So what led to and you've mentioned multiple businesses, and I know you do multiple businesses, but how did you get to the insurance side of things, and what brought you into that world, and I guess what was the drive for that?
Yeah.
Because it is a service that we all need in many different areas. You've written many policies for me. You're our current policy owner for our TopCity Realty here, as well as my past businesses that I've done. But how do you get to that point of, that's when you lock down and you say, I want to own a business doing this, and I want to provide this services to people?
So, one of the things that I became unhappy with in the glass world, which I think can be a very common thing among sales, is when a sale is nothing more than a promise to deliver, right?
That's true.
If I'm selling a camera, I'm selling that you're going to be able to take fantastic pictures on this piece of equipment. I'm delivering that promise. Well, one of the things I disliked in the insurance or in the glass world is I had to count on somebody else to provide that level of service to my client that I was promising, and I didn't like that. I didn't like the fact that I would commit to something, and then at somebody else's whim, they wouldn't deliver on that promise, because I'm a man of my word. And so I started to look around, and I called on a lot of insurance agents at the time, and really was fascinated by the business, and insurance is, at that very nature, is a promise-driven business. It's a communication business. It's a trust business. All things that I'm passionate about.
True.
And one of the things I liked about the Allstate model is I owned my business, so it was up to me to be able to interact with the company, to be able to pull the claims adjusters, help walk them through the claims, and really fight for my clients, which is something that was so important to me, and something that I really am passionate about to this day. I love to build relationships in the community with other businesses, to be able to help their business. For example, if there's an electrical issue, I can recommend a top quality contractor. Where if a power mast is ripped off in a storm, I can send somebody out to the client that's going to really do well by them to fix their house. And so
well, plus how it all ties in with the insurance side of it too. So that's a huge help, because there's some things that could possibly go that could have been covered, or that maybe isn't covered, and you'll know what those things are right away. So having that personal relationship with the client and having those resources at hand, it all ties in, and it just provides that value that you're so adamant about being able to provide. So yeah, I can definitely see the value there.
I had a great conversation with a client earlier this week, and his frustration is shared by so many of the clients that we write. And that was, hey, I had a question about my insurance. I called my carrier to ask them a question, and they opened a claim on me, and I don't understand why. I really just wanted to understand my situation and how it tied to my insurance. And the term they use is they dinged me. And if I am going to get in trouble every time I use my insurance policy, why do I have insurance, right? And so what it allows us to do when we have an agent, or what my role is to be able to be that advisor, that trusted advisor, and to help people understand, not just when they write the policy, but when something goes wrong, to call me on a Saturday and say, hey, I've got water running through my basement right now. It's terrible. How do I handle that situation?
Right.
Not just from a contractor, but from a who's going to pay for it.
Right.
If Allstate's going to pay for it, what's that going to look like to me down the road?
Right.
And so we can give them better advice as far as, what's the right decision for their situation.
Sure. Sure.
And that's really cool. That really is, one of the most enjoyable parts of the job.
So when you got into insurance, did you start Allstate, the Brian Green Agency, right away, or was there a process where you were with another company and then you kind of moved into that?
So I actually took a lot of time and energy studying the different companies in our market, and looked at so many different things. What the relationship between the agent and the company was, what the market positioning looks like, what the opportunity to grow looks like, what the company's goals are for growth. You want a company that has a good, strong history, a history of being able to pay claims, because if I sell a policy, my clients aren't thinking about whether that company is going to pay the claim.
Sure.
They're assuming that if the company's selling insurance, they're able to pay the claim.
Right.
But every year there's companies that go out of business because of a big catastrophe that wipes them out. And
sure.
So, there's all these things to think about. So I chose Allstate off the bat. I was leaning towards Allstate, and then it was really a unique circumstance where the manager that I had a lot of respect for at my glass company said, I'm leaving because at this point Harding had been sold, and the new company didn't believe in sales or sales agents. He said, I'm going to become an Allstate agent. You should look at it. At the same time, a local agent here approached me and said, hey, you'd be great as an Allstate agent. You should really look at it. And I had kind of been leaning that way anyway with the opportunity. And so it kind of was this perfect storm of I think this is where I'm being called to be.
Just kind of pulled all together.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So then it was really what was the opportunity, because Allstate agents own their books of business. And so within 90 days of kind of making the decision I was moving to insurance, I received a call from a friend who said, there's an Allstate agency for sale. You need to go talk to the guy. This is your opportunity.
So you bought into an already established book of business.
I did.
Very cool.
Yeah, I was just having I had a daughter and had just found out I was pregnant with my first son, and so really needed to at least have a few dollars coming in to buy those diapers. And so we bought an existing agency that was on the smaller middle size, and have been able to
grow it to what it is.
Grow it.
So outside of the insurance, that's all fascinating. I love how people get into the businesses that they do. There's always a story behind it, and a lot of people only see the success or the flashy side of what we do, and usually there's a lot of heartache and a lot of late nights, and wondering when that next paycheck's coming in, and worrying about being able to afford diapers, and that's the thing that people don't see. And it's times like that give you that grit you need to have to persevere to get to that finish line. And you know, the finish line is always moving. You know, you never actually get there. It looks like it's in sight, and then your goals, you raise your goals, or you whatever. You know, you're like, okay, I got to keep growing. I got to keep outperforming what I did last year. So that finish line is always moving, which is okay. You know, people want to be driven, and I do believe that there's a time where we'll get to a point in our lives where, you know, maybe we do want to consider stepping aside or growing it to the point to where we can step aside and let somebody else manage it. And, you know, whether we decide to take a share of it or sell it at that point, I mean, that's up to us at that point. But hearing people's stories on how they get started is always fascinating to me. But outside the insurance, you mentioned other businesses. What other businesses do you do, Brian?
So I've got one of my first businesses I started in rental properties. So my first year out of college, because of my success in the sales job, I was able to buy a house. So I was, 22 and when I bought that house, and put some friends of mine from KU in it, and was charging rent right off the bat. And
smart.
A couple of years in after that, I bought an old farmhouse in Manhattan, which was part of my sales territory at the time, and just kind of have added consistently to that. So I have about just shy of 50 houses that I rent out.
Are they all single family, or do you do multifamily as well?
I have some duplexes and triplexes, a couple of Airbnbs that we do down at the Lake of the Ozarks, and so that's kind of cool. And I still enjoy that most days. Well,
I didn't know anything about the Airbnbs. Now I'm curious. I'm like, well, maybe I need a weekend out. Now I got connections now, so good thing we had this conversation, because I wouldn't have known that.
Exactly. So, so that's fun, and gives me a creative outlet to, sometimes we're going to remodel these houses, and I love putting the houses together. And that's led into some more recent, where we're building some new construction as well. I've done some flips in the past, and so we do some of the. So just overall, really enjoy that creative outlet, and one of the things that I have is kind of this vein of helping people establish their business dream as well, where they have a passion. I love to collaborate with people, and where both of us can have success.
And that's kind of where our relationship is kind of entwined. You're obviously your affiliate partner with us here at TopCity Realty. But that just kind of goes. You saw an opportunity with a up and coming new company that if we were to work together will be a win-win for everybody. And I think for the most part, all businesses have that outlook. It's like, how do we work together versus setting ourselves apart from each other. And I think if companies have maintained that kind of an openness, local business can thrive. It really can. And we are up against a lot. There are a lot of major corporations that obviously can beat us on prices, obviously can do different things that maybe some of our local businesses can't do. But I think when local businesses pull together, they really can be a good thing for the communities. So there's that. What other businesses do you have? Anything else?
So about 10 or probably closer to 12 years ago, I was approached by an old friend of mine, and we started talking about his foray into metal fabrication. And so he brought me in contact with the initial founder, Andy Harris, who was really the brains behind the metal and the creation of the product. And so after some communication, we felt there was some good synergy there, and loved his drive, and we felt the three of us could really do something special. And so we started. Andy and Rodney is the gentleman that introduced us. Moved downtown to a space, and we were there for a couple of years, and then outgrew that fairly quickly. And so probably about 7 or 8 years ago, we purchased the old postal facility, North Kansas, just past Highway 24, and then last year we added another 20,000 square feet out there.
Wow.
So we've grown into a very successful metal fabrication business.
So any kind of metal fabrication, or is there anything in particular that it specializes in?
So we specialize in filtration systems, actually, whether that's for the food industry.
Sure.
So obviously, if you're dealing with grains, the dust will blow up if it.
Yep.
So we catch that dust and keep it from blowing up.
Right.
Fairly important.
Yeah.
And then we do the same thing for clean coal. So we build a lot of the filtration equipment to keep that stuff out of the air.
Okay. Yeah, very neat.
And we recently have gotten into a lot of the ducting, a giant duct work for a lot of this equipment.
Yeah.
We initially were into doing a lot of the food industry work out of stainless steel, but that industry has changed a lot, and
Yeah, it has.
our call has moved to this, and so that's really what we're doing the most of right now.
Sure.
So
And you're just kind of all over the place with businesses here.
I am.
You know, that's in my opinion, that's a drive for. I mean, when you're in business, and you know, there are those who will only dabble with what they know, and then there's the risk takers, those who, okay, I'm looking for another venture here, and it takes a lot to venture outside of your base knowledge. But you have to be pretty smart with understanding the business structures of things, and you know, that's something I've always been into. I love looking at profit and losses, balance sheets, things like that, and dissecting companies. I've been following the stock market since probably 2011, 2012. I got very good at digging in and finding out what may or may not be a good investment. But that's always driven a curiosity for being an investor in multiple businesses. So, you know, right now I've been in the building industry. I've been in the real estate industry with my wife here as both a sales and now as a company owner and a brokerage owner. So it's when you get to a point of business and investment and ownership, it tends to breed this within you where you want more. And you know, when you can make one thing work, you get that, well, what else can I make work?
Exactly.
You know, and have a potentially passive income from, and ownership in, and you know, building a for lack of better words, an enterprise, you know, out of something, and having a what I call wealth. You know, I think that we're all trying to grow something that, you know, our families can be proud of, our kids can benefit from when, you know, if something should happen to me, you know, that's left for them, that generational wealth that I think there's a lot of people who want that. I'll also say that I think that the times we're in does make it hard for people to get ahead.
Absolutely.
You know, in real estate alone, it's you know, 87% of the people who get in this business, they're out within the first 2 years, for whatever reason. But it's just, business is extremely hard, and I've had businesses fail, and I've had businesses that TopCity is doing just fine. We're doing great, and we're growing, and you know, we're super proud of it. But not all my businesses have been that way.
Right.
You know? Some of them have been like, how am I going to feed, you know, my kids this week, or you know, how am I going to make sure the employees are paid? And you know, it's those days where you really have to sit down and dig within yourself. Do I like this? Is this worth it? You know, and sometimes that end goal can really get clouded, and you feel like you'll never reach it. But you know, for those who persevere, they find ways, and it does work out. You know, those hard times where they hit you and you're like, how do I get out of this? And how will I ever be out of this? You know? And then, you know, a month or two goes by and everything worked out, and it wasn't as bad as it was in that moment, and you move forward. And, you know, so, but... and
I think those are the things that I've always thought, you know, people say, well, how do you do so much? And the truth is, that's what keeps me fresh, you know, is... my mind, you know, needs to be challenged, and so those are the things that, you know, sometimes it keeps me awake at night. But there's not very many moments in a day that I just sit without, you know, thinking, and I love to bounce ideas off of people and hear their solutions to a problem that, you know, they've worked through, and they might be smarter than me in a lot of areas. And I'll never tell my wife that, you know, but you know, there are a lot of people around me that bring me so much knowledge, and you know, and then like how do you implement that in
Right.
your world,
Right.
you know, to make it better, and you know, what can you bring to the table for young entrepreneurs that want to, you know, be where you are in 10 or 20
Sure.
years, to help them learn how they can be better at what they do is really cool too.
Well, you know, when you run businesses the way we do, and you know, it's almost like that becomes the biggest part of it. You know, for me, it's nice being successful. It's nice, but it's awesome when you see somebody else, you know, join your team or whatever, and then they just, you know, it changes their life, and you're supporting them, you're helping them, and you're seeing them grow within their own business. That, in my opinion, has been the most rewarding thing in real estate for me, with my role and with what I do. You know, you see my advertising with Christine, and you know, we sell houses, even though I don't believe that real estate agents sell houses. You know, we facilitate a transaction. Houses sell themselves, in my opinion. But you know, it's always a how do you push forward, and how do you help other people? And for me, that's where it went. That's where my passion is the coaching and the training side of things, and helping people get into this business. I've met with hundreds of people that want to get into this business over my, you know, 4, 5, 6 years of management side of this business. I've probably helped over, I'd say, probably getting close to about 100 people get into this business or transfer licenses from one company to another. And there's a lot of the same things that I hear in those conversations. I want more. You know, it's they're in a job where their education or their current employment, they don't see a higher rung on the ladder.
Yeah.
You know, they feel like they're at what it's going to be for the rest of their life. And so the attraction for real estate is their opportunity for more. And I'd assume that when you deal with the agents within insurance, it's a lot of the same. There's opportunity. You know, if you can come in and make X amount of what we call transaction sales, closed transactions, I'm not sure closed policies maybe, what the terms is in the insurance world, but you know, that's what people are pushing for, and that's, if you can do those things and you can do them consistently while maintaining a good integrity, and you're going to grow, you're going to become successful, and you know, it kind of leads to that next progression of, you know, do I want to start my own shop? Do I want to do my own things?
Right.
And you know, people take those steps, just like you did, just like I have. But I agree, and as you grow in any business, you know, I think it always turns into that, helping other people, seeing them become successful, and then, you know, ultimately, I think it'll lead to, who do I leave it to? You know, at some point. So, in your journey of your multiple businesses, do you use coaching or mentors or anything like that? Because that's something that in real estate is I don't want to say it's heavily pushed, but there is a large demand for those types of things, and I'm always curious to know if that's something that other businesses are doing as well and invest into, and you know, so I'm just curious.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. Early in my career, I used outside coaching a lot. And in fact, I've invested in outside coaching for people on my team where I wanted to get them to the next step, where I really could see an opportunity to grow there. And, you know, one of the things that's really, I think is very fortunate for me as I've developed as an agent, and one of the things I do really like about Allstate is the agent staff, the agents around the country have a really strong ethic of helping each other. And so, you know, we have a conversation with other agents all the time.
Sure.
Where, you know, we're looking at different opportunities. You know, recently, one of the things I'm very fortunate is I'm good at understanding the policies and able to take those and put them into a language that just about anyone can understand, whether that's an outside client or my own team, you know, the agents I'm teaching. And so, you know, I put on a workshop for my staff a couple of weeks ago, and, you know, offered that to a good friend of mine's, his teacher
Sure.
in his agency, and hopefully, she's able to pick some things out that she can then take and teach. And so, there's a lot of times, and especially in a business like insurance, and I would imagine real estate, where it's a one-on-one competition.
Oh, yeah.
We're fighting against, but Allstate, I think we really have a great culture, and especially in our market. I can't speak, but I think really even countrywide, of there's plenty of business out there for all the Allstate agents. How do we, be more successful
Sure.
as a company, and so I've moved to a lot more of that, to communicating with agents that are more successful in certain areas, in certain parts of their business, and trying to find ways to implement that into my business.
Sure.
And that's been very successful for me.
Very cool. It's let's put this, the progression, it seems like, is always, you become the mentor, you become that person within the company when you're running it, and you have people below you. It's some people are really good at it. Some people don't like it as much, but I think that at a certain point in your business career, as an owner, as a manager, as a leader of a company, you become that, and there's no way around that. And whether your role is to provide it or to pay for somebody else, we are at a point to where progressing our people is what our game is at that point. Because and I'm sure you still write policies and sell policies and all that, but you also rely on your agents below you to do the same thing for your company. So your investment is in their progress and in how you can progress them in their sales and what they're doing. So that's awesome. I love doing that, and it's the same thing in real estate. It's no different. So there's a lot of similarities with the two different types of agents that we deal with here. So
Absolutely.
That's very cool.
Absolutely.
So
and I think just there needs to be a next generation in these businesses that are educated and know the business. And I think, if you don't get that one-on-one training, it's so hard. I know when I got into the insurance business, the first December, the phone rang twice the whole month.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know what I was doing. And I sat there, and then I got and this is really before agents helped agents like they do now, especially in this market. I didn't know anybody, and I thought, man, I'm going to fail. And then I had a manager actually come in and say, hey, here's some processes, right? And I've never looked back from those processes. And so, you try and find a way that you can be when somebody reaches out to you,
Yep.
like, hey, let's work through this together.
Yep.
Let's find opportunities together, and let's.
So, the biggest thing and the hardest thing for what I see, and maybe this is the same with insurance, but in real estate, the hardest part of this business is for stepping out of your comfort zone with your own personality. You have to be able to go talk to people. You have to go have conversations with people. Conversion happens with conversation. And so if you're and I'm not saying that being introverted is a negative in this business, because there's plenty of introverted people in this business that make it work. You just have to be able to step outside of that at necessary times. So when I'm meeting with somebody who's like, hey, I'm interested in getting this business, those are the questions I'm asking. Because it's an investment to get in this business. It's going to cost you, anywhere from $2,000 to $2,500 all said and done by the time you pay all your fees and entry and education. And so when I meet with somebody, and knowing the statistics I know of 87% of people getting into this business are going to be done in 2 years, I'm almost trying to talk them out of it at that point. Because I know if they can go through that conversation with me and they still want to do it, they've got some grit to them and they understand the hard work that they're going to have to put in, the hustle to it. Because there are a lot of people getting in this business who, unfortunately, they've watched HGTV, or they see everybody with their social media and how great they're doing in real estate. That's because people don't post their negatives. All they do is post the positives, and it puts this kind of veil over the actual hard work that goes into what got them there. And it's awesome that they're having success, and I'm definitely not diminishing that in any way.
Of course.
But unfortunately, the public doesn't see that grind.
Yeah.
So when I sit down with somebody, I'm like, listen, you have to be able to do this business, and this is going to be the hardest part. And I tell them, do you have a problem going up to somebody that you don't know and just starting a conversation? And if they tell me no, I'm like, well, you're going to have a hard time in this business, because you have to be able to communicate with it. You have to find a channel to communicate through, whether it's networking, which in our office, Greg Pert, the guy knows everybody. I don't know if I've ever been anywhere where they don't know Greg and Kelly Pert. And that's how he's built his business.
Yeah.
You know, he's a network guy.
Yeah.
And then there's a guy like me who, I've done it through social media.
Mm.
You know, I am very introverted, and you know, I've had to put myself in an uncomfortable situation. You know, years ago this wouldn't have happened. I'm not sitting in front of a camera having a conversation with somebody. But you know, you have to put yourself in a position to be uncomfortable, to grow. Yeah. And you know, as a manager, as a leader, it's my job to make people aware of what that step is, and without any other way to push them.
100%.
And some react very well to it, and they like it, and they do the things that are needed, and they become successful. And then they're the ones that they fight it. They do everything that they can to avoid the steps that they have to take, and they end up burned out.
Yeah.
And you know, year in, 2 years in, they're like, this ain't for me.
Right.
So, and I assume insurance is a lot like that too.
Yeah, you know, I changed my approach recently to really say to new candidates, like, you're going to have to work hard. You're going to be here every day. And, like, this is not going to be the easiest job you're going to ever have. Like, there's easier ways to make money than in insurance, right? Mm-hmm. But you will find a great level of reward financially, emotionally, if this is for you. So understand that if you're looking for an easy job, you're in the wrong field, at least in my world, because of my expectation for the way we treat clients and the way we treat each other. So if you want a job that's fulfilling and pays well, you can have that. Mm-hmm. But if you want a job that is easy, you're at the wrong door.
So, you know, you use that term easy job, and I think that the mentality isn't so much that they're looking for an easy job, they're looking for easy money.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between the two, and you know, there's not saying it hasn't happened, but there are people who get into real estate, and they're those social butterflies. They already know everybody, and yes, odds are they're going to be successful right away because they've already built those relationships and those connections. Yeah. And then there's the people who, let's just use as an example, somebody who just moved to the town. And they're like, hey, I'm new here. I need to start a new career. Real estate seemed like they're going to have a tough time building that business. Yeah. And if they are not able to get out of that comfort zone, it's going to be a hustle. And, you know, they're going to put in the long hours, and and I don't know about in insurance, but in real estate, you're everything. You're the marketing guy, you're the PR guy, you're the admin, you're the agent, you're the showing guy, you're everything in the business. And so you're not just working one specific little thing within real estate. And I think a lot of people don't understand that when they think about getting into real estate. And I don't know if that's the same way in insurance, being under an agency. And of course, you know, TopCity does marketing, they market their agents. But we don't market our agents' businesses. Yeah. You know, we market, you know, we show that they're available, they are licensed with us, and we promote them in all those senses. We show that, you know, they had a sale, they had a new listing, we do all that. But we don't build their book of business. That's on them. And so it's one of the hardest things to do. It really is. And it's not easy money. No. And it's a job. It's like you said, you're going to be here every day. You know, if you're not dedicating at a very minimum 8 hours a day to it, you're going to get left behind. You're going to not be very successful, and you have to dedicate that time, and you have to be driven. You know, you have to have that end goal. I think that people don't have goals, specific goals. Everybody obviously wants to be successful, but not everybody wants to dissect what it takes to get there. And so, you know, when you can sit somebody down, as I'm sure you do with all your agents, sit them down. What do you want to achieve? Let's make a roadmap to get there. Mm-hmm. And then all you have to do now is take the actions. And that's that right there. they're either on board and they are going to take the actions, or they're not. They've made that decision right then and there. And, they may say they are, but deep in their mind they know, I don't like making calls, or I don't like talking to people. And if you start having those thoughts right off the bat, and you're not countering with, it's okay, I know what I want to achieve long run, you're going to have a hard time building any kind of, in my opinion, any kind of sales business.
It's funny. I had a woman work for me a while back, and clear expectations going in, and she struggled to be on the phone. And in our world, you can't struggle to be on the phone.
Yeah, no.
Well, it came out that she had built a list of 50 businesses. The Walgreens pharmacy calling center, where to refill a prescription, push one. She'd built 50 different phone numbers that she was calling every day to show me she was calling people. And I'm like, well, these are the same numbers every day.
Right.
And she worked harder to be a failure than if she'd just done the work. Yep. But the truth is, either number one, she didn't care about success, she wanted a check, or number two, she was scared to death to talk to people, but didn't want to admit to herself or me that she couldn't do the job.
Right.
And, but it's funny because you do. Sometimes you come across people that will work harder to tread water than they would work to move forward.
Yep.
And so, it's always that, like, in loving care, like, how do I either help you move forward or find a career that you're going to enjoy where you'll want to move yourself forward? Because life's too short,
yeah, it is.
To hate what you do every day.
And it's not benefiting anybody.
No,
it's not. It's not good for the company. It's not good for that person individually. Period. Because they're not happy.
Yeah.
And it never leads to anything good. Never. Whether it's disdain for the company or whatever, that rarely ever has a positive outcome. So it's and it's the same in real estate. People get into this business, they're blinded by the grandeur of it all, and when it comes down to it, they're just not willing to put in the work.
Right.
And I'm guilty of this. I often find that I'm always my biggest hurdle. And if I could just get out of my own way, action happens. But that's what it is. Most people just need to get out of their own way and just make a decision. And most people have a hard time being honest with themselves, really. And as somebody in my position, I can often see it when they're having that struggle internally. Just because I've been in this position for so long, I can kind of see that. And when they come and ask me, well, why am I not selling anything? Well, let's take a look at your CRM. Let's see how many people you've added. Are you talking to people daily? Well, no.
Yeah.
It's pretty self-explanatory, and most of the time you can dissect it that way. But appreciate you sitting down with me, having this conversation. It
was fun.
How does somebody get a hold of you?
I am on Facebook, so you can reach out through my Facebook site. I am online. You can find Brian Green on the Allstate website. It will take you straight to my website. You can Google Brian Green. My phone number is there. I'm certainly not hidden online. And you can email me find me online. It's easier than trying to give you an email here. Brian Green, and green's like the color. And if you look for me online, you'll find my number, my email, and I'm very available. So reach out.
You can always come up to TopCity Realty and find him here too. Sometimes. We'll give you his number if he's not here. So, but Brian, it's always great to have you around here. We appreciate your support, and hopefully that we can continue to have this great relationship and see each other grow our businesses. So,
absolutely. Thank you.
It's amazing to do this today. Yeah, we'll do it again sometime.
Sounds good.